Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Education and Culture Committee meeting today, October 24th. I will say that I was talking to Councilmember Jawando and Councilmember Navarro. I think we do have one more Education and Culture Committee meeting. However, I'm not sure if all of our members are going to be here for that. So this may be one of our last meetings where we meet as a committee in its entirety together in person. And so just want to take a moment of personal privilege to say how fantastic it has been over almost a decade now of being chair of the Education and Culture Committee and having tremendous people who have such a dedication to education and ensuring that our education system continue to move forward in the best ways for our students, but also for our greater community as a whole. We not only serve as a great example for our state, but we also serve as a great example for our nation in terms of how to continuously innovate and ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students where they are and where we want them to be. And that is always unique. And that is one of the great things that I've loved about this county, is that we continue to understand that not everything is right for every child, but we do the best we can to make sure that we can give them whatever it is that they need to be successful in whatever pathway they choose. And I think that is one of the key tenets that we're going to talk about today a little bit later on in our second item, where we talk about our college and career readiness and our adoption of the Maryland Blueprint for Education, and really talk about, again, what we see as the future of education. But I want to turn to my colleagues very quickly if they had any opening comments, because, again, this may be our last meeting in person together. So let me turn to Councilmember Navarro, followed by Councilmember Jawando.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so this is such a pivotal, and I think actually the items on the agenda today are very aligned with the spirit of the commitment and dedication that this county as a whole has always.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I'll say it again. I'll say it again, Siri.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
There we go. No, I mean, there's a lot to reflect on. I believe, for me, on a personal note, obviously, having served on the Board of Education for 5 years, led that body for two years consecutively, but really, truly, education was the reason why I ended up in the space of public service. It's incredible how quickly time does fly. Because when I joined the Board of Education, my kids were, elementary school, middle school, and now they're very successful young women in the corporate world doing amazing things. And many of the things they're doing are because of their experience in Montgomery County Public Schools. It is really due, it is a testament to this incredible institution. And all of us here collectively have an extraordinary responsibility, because we know that once an institution like Montgomery County Public Schools, once you let it slide a little bit, it's always difficult to get it back on track. An institution of that size, an institution that has such an incredible, strong reputation. And so to me, I've always used to think about that the responsibility that we have is really incredible, because there's no doubt that just like my family that chose to move to Montgomery County in 1991 to raise our children so they could go through Montgomery County Public Schools, this is really the hook for so many people that make Montgomery County home. And so it is our collective responsibility, and I cannot say how wonderful it has been. What an honor to serve on the Board of Education and then serve on this body, specifically in this particular committee, through so many ups and downs. But it's great to know that the institution is very strong, and it's also been real full circle for me since Roland Ikaloa became my chief of staff when he was my chief of staff when I was on the Board of Education, and just shared with me, I think a couple of days ago or so, an article that the Washington Post wrote in 2006 when I was president of the board, where I was talking about the diversity and the projections of the demographic changes for Montgomery County Public Schools and the implications of that for our students. And so it's incredible how, again, we continue to really work on the same issues. But I am pleased to know that under your leadership, and then with Councilmember Jawanda joining us, and now he will take the baton to make sure that the next council continues this tradition. It's just been really an honor, and so I just want to thank everybody collectively, because Montgomery County Public Schools has a stellar team of staff members on all levels that make this incredible institution what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Jawanda.
No pressure. Well, I appreciate that, and I don't think any of us were prepared to do this today, but I just kind of anecdotally mentioned, I said, this is probably one of the last times we're going to all be sitting next to each other. And I often say, and I mean it every time I say it, that this has been my favorite committee, in part because of in no small part, the great leadership and working with my colleagues. It is, I think, it's the first time we've ever had a committee comprised of all people of color. In the council's history, at a time when we're working on a school system that is majority young people of color, as we talk about, and at a time when we really need help, and to make sure our kids, there's just a report out today that scores are down, which we would expect after the trauma of the last 2.5 years. And I've been really proud to work with you all and with all of our colleagues and the school system to put in place the measures that are going to lead us to greater success and to helping our kids get back on track, mentally, socially, emotionally, and academically, of course. I do plan on returning, if the voters should say that they want me to, and I do plan on returning to the Education Committee because I do think it's important to have some consistency. I've really appreciated both of your knowledge and history, both from the board for you, Councilmember Navarro, and Councilmember Rice, both years in Annapolis and here on the council. That's been very helpful in our discussions of how we approach things, and I think that will serve the new council well. So I'm excited about what's ahead, and we do have a great school system. If I had to nail down, similar to Councilmember Navarro, why I got into public service as a staff person, as a civil rights lawyer, as an elected official, it was because of educational opportunity that I was lucky enough to receive here in Montgomery County, but that I also want every child, as we all do, to have access to. So I think that's why we're here. It is the great equalizer. There's a lot of other things we need to do, housing and health care and a whole set of things. But if you can get this right, you can give everyone an opportunity. And so I look forward to continuing that work. And I know you guys won't be too far. Hopefully you still answer my calls. And but really appreciate the work of the committee and our central staff. That's been great.
Well, thank you very much to both of you. And it's surreal. It's also one in which I hope that we remember that it's just a generation ago where many people of color were denied access to equitable education. My mother still talks about it to this day, being then a former principal and business administration teacher and university administrator. She tells me the stories about growing up in rural South Carolina, where she didn't have the same opportunities that we fight for all of our kids today. It was not that long ago. And so that's something that we have to remind ourselves of in the great work that we're doing and the things that we're trying to undo. Understanding that systemic harm that existed then has put so many people behind the 8 ball, placed obstacles in front of them to where those parents, much like my parents, then some of them didn't have that opportunity. So when it comes to then them helping their children at home with homework, them ensuring that they can help them to navigate the school system, they don't have any experience with that. So they never had it for themselves. And we all know experiential learning is something that matters. And so not having that experience certainly lends to a continuous disconnect between our school systems and our communities, primarily of color and of lower socioeconomic status. And so, the work that we do here, Councilmember Jawanda, as you said, and Councilmember Navarro, the reason why you got in this is so incredibly important. I said it when I first got elected. I said it when I was running for office. Education is the most important function of government. It truly is. And if you think about how this country was founded and what it is that we needed to do with our constituency as a country, it was very clear that the founding fathers realized how important education was and set up systems in place to standardize educational opportunities. The unfortunate thing is it wasn't standardized for everyone. Now we've gotten to that place. But there are still people trying to erode those opportunities that we have for individuals, namely through affirmative action and others. And, you know, it's, as you leave, you get to get on your soapbox a little bit more and preach. I hope that folks understand that it is still not equitable in terms of access to education, especially at the higher levels of education with our institutes of higher education. I mean, it's very clear still to this day when you look at student loans and affordability, admission rates, that there still is a distinct difference. And it is interesting. I'll just close with this before we jump into the thing. It is interesting that at some of our most elite schools that we have the most stringent admission requirements. And if you think about that for a moment and say to yourself, so we're weeding out so many people who want to be a part of this institution, who would work hard and would do well. But we're already saying, no, we can't accommodate. So instead of us building and creating an opportunity for more people, we've actually held it to a very small few. That's interesting because that goes counter to what education is all about. It truly is about giving everyone, as many people as possible, the opportunity to learn and to garner that information. It's not just for a few, it's for everyone. So it's my hope that as folks continue to work in this education space that we understand truly what's at stake. By us continuing to prohibit individuals from accessing and being able to deliver at the top of their ability, we're holding not only these individuals down, but our country down, our society down. When we don't allow people to operate to their fullest potential, we all lose. It's not just that individual, it's all of us. So here's to a better society. Here's to a more open access when it comes to educational opportunities. And with that, we're going to go into something that talks about some educational opportunities, namely when it comes to technology for our teachers in ensuring that they can do everything they can for our kids. So we're going to start off with a supplemental appropriation for the FY23 capital budget and amendment to the FY23 capital improvements program in the amount of $750,000 for Montgomery County Public Schools out of the Technology Modernization Project. I'd like to invite up Stephanie Sharon, who's our Chief Strategic Initiatives for Montgomery County Public Schools, Dr. Kara Trenkamp, Director of the Department of Digital Innovation for Montgomery County Public Schools, Rob Riley, the Associate Superintendent of Finance for Montgomery County Public Schools, Ms. Mary Beck with the Office of Management and Budget, and Ms. Veronica Jawa with the Office of Management and Budget as well. So if you guys could go ahead and join us. I'll start off because I know this project intimately. This started off as a conversation amongst many of our teachers who were involved in the Montgomery King Code program, whose partnership with Apple, and the conversation around the opportunity to utilize different forms of technology. The reality is that just as when I came here to the council, there were restrictions in terms of the technology that you were allowed to use. Apple devices were not supported nor allowed in the in council office, and so it was myself, then council member Elrich, now county executive Elrich, who were one of the primary adopters of Apple technology on the council, who had insisted that we change our thinking to allow for us to have that flexibility, understanding that giving options does matter. It's important to folks because however they're able to utilize technology to do their job better is what we all want. We all want that efficiency. And so when we had a conversation with the school system about this and the opportunities that we had, it made complete sense that we would start a program like this and pick particular schools, one high school, one middle school, and one elementary school, who really were a target audience for us, where we knew that the children would benefit directly from the teachers having more of that ability to be able to have the flexibility in choosing how they wanted to reach out. And we've seen it when it comes to some of our science classes, some of our music classes, to where just some of the applications are better in different platforms than others, or stronger, I should say. I don't know if I should use the word better, but are stronger in that aspect. And so from that standpoint, it really is good to just, again, give people choice. This isn't saying that you have to use a certain device, which I think is fantastic. It gives people the ability to utilize whichever one they want. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, colleagues, in terms of my involvement with this. There's a little bit more, but I want folks who are involved in this as well, who are right alongside me, to have an opportunity to speak about this, and then I'll turn it over to staff. So let me turn first to Ms. Stephanie Sharon, Chief of Strategic Initiatives, because again, when we talk about innovating in our schools, this is exactly what we want to see our school system doing. So with that, Ms. Sharon.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I just wanted to frame out this very exciting pilot program that we want to initiate in Montgomery County Public Schools. In the pandemic, as you know, we went to one-on-one devices for students and staff, and we had to pivot extremely quickly in doing that. And when we implemented the devices, the one-on-one teacher devices, we heard a lot from our teachers around the desire to have something different. That maybe they didn't necessarily need the device in the way that we initially intended, and they wanted the opportunity to really have choice and to choose, so they could really leverage the different opportunities that they could have in the classroom with the kids. So that's really where this was born out of, which was thinking about, now that we are post-pandemic, well, mostly post-pandemic, hopefully post-pandemic, we have learned a lot. And one of the things that we have learned is the opportunity for technology to be an accelerator of equity within our district. And that is really what the Office of Strategic Initiatives is leveraging in all of our spaces when we think about technology, is to really think about how it is an equity accelerator. So this is one way where we want to think about how we do that. So the Teacher Choice Pilot is for teacher retention. One of the things we hear from our teachers constantly is, give us choice. We're professionals. We can, if we have choice, that actually will make us feel, more empowered to do our job. So the purpose of this pilot is to study whether or not the choice of devices has an impact on teacher retention. We also will take a look at how it impacts student engagement and instruction in the classroom. But we also have to study the impact on the back end as well. We have to think about the impact on our infrastructure, our technology infrastructure, on our costs, as well as what the impact is around professional learning, not just for the teachers in the classroom, but the support staff that have to help make sure that these devices are functioning. So the Teacher Choice Pilot, we really wanted, since we're talking about choice, we actually want to have the teachers choose the different devices that could potentially be available for them. So part of our process is to do a request for information of our various vendors to see what their latest and greatest is out there that could match our specs for our district and that would match our infrastructure. Part of this program is going to be then to bring the teachers in themselves, test the devices, see what the capabilities are of the different devices to help us narrow what choices they will have. And then our goal is to then provide them professional learning around the different devices, what they can do with it, and have that be ongoing throughout the pilot. So one of the things that we want to do with the pilot, once they get their devices and they choose, and we provide them the initial professional learning around the basics with the device, is that we want to make sure that we're providing cohort opportunities based on some device choices that they make based on what they choose to determine how can we help them grow with the implementation of this device. And our goal is to really study the program. Our target time frame would be the end of January, if everything goes right, to get those devices in the hands of teachers. And then to study the program through December. And the reason we want to study through December is for a few reasons. First, we're not going to take the current device out of the hands of teachers right away. We know they need some time to adjust. Teachers have a very stressful job, and as they're learning a new device, we want them to have a fallback if their new device maybe doesn't work, if they choose that. The teachers can also choose to keep the device that they have. If that is the best instructional tool for them, we're not forcing them to identify the utilization of a different device. So we're going to phase them out over the course of a few months where they will have both devices to utilize, and then we'll take the other device that we really can study the implementation of that new device. We want to do it through December because we really want to give it enough time to study all of those factors that I mentioned before. And the reason we want to do this pilot now is because, as you know, with ESSER funds, we have really had a big bang approach to funding all those one-on-one devices for teachers and students. We don't typically, when we engage in technology refresh, do a big bang approach like that because it's cost prohibitive. We do a phase-in model, and our first phase-in model, based on the age of the devices that we just gave teachers about a year ago, would be to think about our first refresh cycle to be in FY25. So this gives us the opportunity to really be strategic in how we're studying the implementation of this, whether or not all of the factors align to continue this, so that when we get to our official tech refresh in FY25, if we want to build this in to expand this throughout the district, we will have had robust data around what the impact is in the classroom and on teacher retention leading into that, so that we really can make a strong decision around how we're going to innovate through our first tech refresh cycle in FY25.
Thank you. And thank you for that background. Again, I don't think any of us up here have a concern about providing more choice to our hardworking teachers who are doing a great job each and every day. Let me turn to Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation and excited about the project. Just for our millions watching at home, what the device you're talking of is probably last. I had to say that today. The device that will be leaving, the current device. Just describe what that is, and then also, it seems like you're structuring it in a way where you're going to have a pre-approved set of devices that teachers can choose from, as opposed to, I know this because my wife and I were just talking about last night, like there's so many choices, right, on what you can pick. Did you think about doing like a dollar amount and then allowing the teacher to pick the device, or within obviously a level of compatibility? I know there has to be certain levels of compatibility, but whether it's Droid or based or Google based or Apple based, I'm sure you can accommodate both. So just talk to me about, one, what we're replacing, and then two, the decision to have a defined list as opposed to just a dollar amount that people could choose whatever they want.
Thank you for that question. So first, I just want to be clear that we're not replacing the current device, because teachers can choose to keep the device that they currently have. So that is one of their choices, will be to keep what they have. And they currently have Dell laptops, not Chromebooks. They have actual Dell laptops. And the reason that we are not just specifying a dollar amount and having people go choose is that there actually needs to be a robust process on our end to make sure that our infrastructure can handle the options that are out there, because it's really not just about saying you can have any device, but there are things that we do around ensuring cybersecurity, how teachers are logging in, how do we as a technology unit push out updates to those computers from a central lens to make sure that they're all up to date with the software that they need. Not every device can do those things, so we need to make sure from an infrastructure lens that we're handling that. We currently have about 6 to 7 teams that are working within our technology department. Then I'll have Dr. Trenkamp add anything that I miss, but that are actually pressing on some devices that we think will be top contenders to make sure that they actually can meet the needs of what our teachers need in the district. We also have a lot of feedback that we've already collected from teachers about what they need in a device, so we're including that feedback as we're narrowing down the options. If we just said, here's $800, go ahead and go find a device, that would create a really big burden on our infrastructure, because we wouldn't necessarily be able to support 25 different devices from a security standpoint. And as I talk about the federation component, where we have to push out security protocols and pushing out software to staff en masse, it would become completely, we wouldn't be able to be implemented. I don't know if Dr. Trenkamp, you have any additions to that.
I think most of it's been covered, but as you heard, we do have multiple teams right now actually digging into some of the popular devices that are, on the market that we know staff would be very interested in seeing in sort of the choice menu. And just to dig into that just a little bit, things like the people that receive the devices and do that inventory, they do that initial configuration to make sure that staff can actually log into that. We have managed accounts, and we'd want to make sure that those accounts actually work on those different devices. And depending on the device choice, those accounts look a little bit different. And so how we federate or push one login across those platforms is work that's underway right now in order to sort of expand our infrastructure. Another group that's really looking at this is our professional development folks, our team. Things that we take for granted every day of how you turn your device on. How do you connect it to your docking station? How do you make sure your document camera can connect? How do you make sure you can project it to your interactive board and use it then as a station? How do you, if it converts to a tablet, how do you use that for touch and things like that? So there are a lot of nuances there around professional development to kind of ease in that transition. Another two really important groups that really are brought in at the very beginning so that they're not scrambling later are help desk. So when our staff call the help desk and they have students that are coming into their room in 15 minutes and they're having a problem, how does the help desk help them right away, with just-in-time support? So that help desk needs to be familiar with the devices and know how to triage and troubleshoot on the fly. And then finally, tech support, our ITSSs that are in the schools, shoulder to shoulder with staff. They're also the staff that are troubleshooting and doing repair. So one of our cost saving strategies in the district has been to become self-certified where we can, because we are a large district, we do buy large quantities of technology. It's often more cost effective for us to train our staff, to have our staff be certified in repair. And so those teams now are really looking at that certified repair process, and based on what devices we end up going with, we'll actually enter into that certification process to become certified to do the repairs in-house, which is a time saver and a dollar saver.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. And it sounds like you answered what was going to be my second question about kind of a focus group of sorts. You have asked teachers, obviously, and have feedback on not only the capability of what they need, but what they might want and that kind of thing. And so that you can see you nodding, so you're welcome to answer it. But yeah, obviously we don't want to give anyone anything they don't want and or that they're not familiar with. And because I've been given technology I don't want in jobs, just speak, and been forced to use things. So it's obviously really important. So.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, because we've been talking to teachers, they've talking to the associations, and some of the things I was like really surprised at. Like we had some teachers a large number of our elementary teachers were like, we want our desktops back. We want those back, and then we want to have a Chromebook that we can then walk around the classroom but we want to have a station, and we don't have those stations anymore. And I guess in my brain, not being in the classroom every day as an elementary school teacher, I wasn't thinking about, wow, I get why you want that now. Like when they explained and walked through the utilization of that. So the teachers have been a prime source for really to make sure that, again, technology as an accelerator of equity. They know what they need. They know what they need, and in today's world, in a post-pandemic world, they can't instruct without these tools. So if their voice is not integral in the process, which is why we're doing a whole showcase with them, once we get to more narrowed down options, it's really being utilized to empower them, which in turn will empower their students that they serve.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So let me turn to Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez and Ms. McGuire, who've done an excellent job, as always, in laying out not only some of our decision points, but then also laying out an analyzation of the program itself. I would encourage folks who may be watching at home who have questions to please refer to the great packet that's there. But let me go ahead and turn it over to you, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, to walk us through some of the decision points that we have before us today.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. Okay. Well, good afternoon, and thank you to our MCPS and OMB colleagues for joining us today for this committee session. I think we had a really great overview of the purpose of the pilot and the structure of it, and so council staff will just focus more on like the fiscal considerations of it and the components of the pilot. So as we noted, this is a supplemental appropriation request for $750,000 in the technology modernization project. The council originally introduced this item on October 11th as a special appropriation. However, since then we have received the county executive's transmittal, and we will now be addressing it as a supplemental appropriation and amendment request. The public hearing for this item is tomorrow, October 25th, and action is tentatively scheduled for November 1st. And so that'll have time for consideration of any public testimony that we receive as well. This appropriation request was built off consumer off-the-shelf pricing from several popular devices, as we heard from MCPS, which is approximately around $1,400 for each device, but that also includes the licensing, repair, cables, and connectors and monitors to monitors and interactive boards, as well as any of the professional training and development MCPS noted as well. They estimate that around 400 to 500 teachers will benefit from the pilot. However, that is dependent on the schools selected. And while the schools haven't been identified, we do know it's one elementary, one middle, and one high school, and that there is criteria selected to identify those schools, which should come in the coming weeks. And that criteria includes established leadership, strong technical and instructional support, and schools with diverse student populations. As they mentioned, if this pilot is to be determined successful in their study, that there would be an expansion beginning with the refresh cycle in FY25. And as you know, a rough estimate, as it wouldn't be a one-time school district-wide expansion most likely, but if it were to be around $250,000 per school, it would be a $52.5 million expansion for the entire district. Last note is that as this funding request is for the technology modernization project, that this would not directly impact the per pupil local contribution amount used to calculate maintenance of effort. And so the technology modernization project utilizes three funding sources within the project, which is current revenue, the recordation tax, and federal aid, with current revenue serving as the main funding source. And I note that because the county executive in his transmittal did recommend approval of this appropriation, but did specify the source of funds as current revenue MCPS, which he notes as available from the excess fund balance as of the end of FY22. And so you'll note that council staff also concurs with his recommendation and recommends the utilization of fund balance, and I'll go through why now. On August 26, MCPS transmitted the Board of Ed's approved FY22 operating budget end-of-year categorical summary and transfer request, which included a summary of their end of FY22 and beginning FY23 fund balance amount. You'll see on the table on page 3, which is taken from that memo. And as shown in the table, MCPS identifies approximately $10 million in the beginning of FY23 fund balance, which is from existing unspent FY22 funding. Compared to prior years, this is a substantially larger amount, and that's mainly due to some late in the fiscal year reimbursements and revenue receipts that they did receive and were not expecting. The County Council must approve the reappropriation of any fund balance that MCPS wants to utilize. And if we utilize fund balance for this project, that there would be a remaining approximate $9.2 million in FY23 fund balance from unspent FY22 funding. Finally, I would like to just note, briefly that the Council did approve during the FY23 budget approval process approximately $26.7 million in FY23 for technology modernization, and as mentioned as well that MCPS continues to expect and utilize funding from the federal and state aid relief that they received from the COVID-19 pandemic towards technology. And so Council staff, recommends for consideration the decision on whether to recommend approval on this appropriation amendment request and the specific funding source, with Council staff and the County Executive recommending fund balance due to the large amount that they currently have and that is not allowed to be spent at this time without Council approval. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez. Before I turn to MCPS, let me turn to Office of Management and Budget, since the County Executive was referenced in terms of the preferential direction of utilizing fund balance, and then I'll turn to Montgomery County Public Schools to talk a little bit about that. So I don't know if Ms. Jawa or Ms. Beck.
I'm going to start. Veronica Hawa from the Office of Management and Budget. As mentioned by the Council staff, the County Executive supports this pilot funded with the MCPS fund balance, because in the operating for FY23, and there was an increase of $84.8 million, and which was $718 impact on the MOE. And in addition to that, as mentioned by council staff, the fund balance is almost 4.5 times FY22 fund balance and for almost 3.9 times FY21 fund balance. So we feel it is one-time cost affordable.
Let me turn to MCPS.
Sorry, my colleagues in the county spoke fluently about the merits of this pilot, and I'm not here to speak against that. I just kind of am in defense of unassigned fund balance. So just to give you a brief history, so unassigned fund balance, GFOA and ASBO recommend 2 months or 16% of fund balance of expenditures should be in fund balance. And as you know, our fund balance is delineated into different buckets, but they further go on to say unassigned fund balance, which is the $9 million that we're talking about here, that they recommend 5% or 3 weeks worth of expenses. So we did do a little better this year than we did in previous years in our unassigned fund balance. But just to give you an idea, so we are at 0.2% of unassigned fund balance, which is the lowest in all of Maryland compared to our colleagues. That represents, instead of 3 weeks, what we have in fund balance represents 1 day of expenditures. We spend on average $8 million a day. So there's, I guess there's a debate in my mind, on what the benefits of unassigned fund balance are. And according to definition from GASB, it's to mitigate risks from unforeseen revenue fluctuations or unanticipated expenditures. So obviously, a lot of LEAs and school districts around the country, they set their own tax rate. So there's variance and fluctuations there. We don't have that, right? Once we know what the county's going to give us and the state and the federal, we don't really have revenue fluctuations. But on the other hand, unanticipated expenditures do happen, and we've seen that happen over the last few years. For instance, one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is utility expenses. So over this last year, we saw a big spike there. So we don't have a budget to we have some budget to cover that, but any emergency things that happen, we really would be looking towards this unassigned fund balance to cover. Another example would be our EBP. So I don't know if you recall our conversation last year when we balanced this budget, and thank you for being very generous in helping to balance our budget. But one of the areas that was still at issue was the $30 million request for our employee benefit plan. So after we realized we weren't getting that, we've gone back and we've looked and to see how we can make that fund sustainable. And we have done some measures. We were realizing savings from an RFP, but we still, according to our analysis as well as our healthcare consultants, we are going to be negative by the end of this year. So one of the sources for that, based on recommendations from the council and the county executive, was to use fund balance. So I know it's $9 million. We were asking for $30 million. I don't know where we're going to land in May or June. But I have to be cognizant that we may be coming to you and asking for funds for that. And another area that happens that we could call emergency or unanticipated expenditures relates to Blueprint. So you're going to be hearing from our colleagues regarding Blueprint today, specifically about college and career and dual enrollment. So we did find out recently that there is an FY23 cost to that. We're estimating about $1 million to cover the cost of tuition for all dual enrollment students. So that $1 million has to come from somewhere as well, too. So I just wanted to point out some of the things regarding our unassigned fund balance. Not to mention the unassigned fund balance, although it is higher than in previous years, that is going to form the basis for our budget for next year. So we're going to try to determine how much do we want to use, with you guys, towards funding the next year's balance. So theoretically, whatever's in that fund balance now, in my mind, should be part of the conversation of what priorities kind of rise to the level of being in our FY24 budget. So even though this is FY23 and this is one time, I do feel that it should be part of that discussion, since that will be part of that funding for FY24. So that's my defense of unassigned fund balance.
No, thank you very much. And I see, Ms. Beck, I'll get to you in 1 sec. So let me just say this. I completely understand understand both sides of this issue in terms of where folks may be. For me, look, and I want to make sure that I set my colleagues up for success. Having as much flexibility as possible with fund balance is always a positive in my eyes when it comes to next year's budget. That's always been my preference. I certainly understand. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all the same money, right? I mean, Ms. Beck, and I'm sure that's probably what you were going to say, because you and I both know we've been down this road, and I know staff has been down this road as well. So it's really, I mean, we're all talking about the same dollars here, right? So again, it's much, to me, again, I'll just express my opinion as chair, and then would love to hear from my colleagues, but I'll turn to Ms. Beck and then to my colleagues. But for me, I've always had a preference that it's much cleaner when it comes straight from CIP dollars as a part of the tech mod, because it keeps consistent with that. Pulling money from fund balance that I'm going to pull from you, well, I won't, but Councilmember Jawando will, that's going to pull from you for next year's budget anyway. It's the same thing. It's not affecting maintenance of effort, which is the main reason why we wanted it to come out of tech mod, because we don't feel as though it's, from that perspective, especially with it being a pilot program, it's not appropriate to go into maintenance of effort funding. And so we all agree, I think, on that point. So that being said, that's kind of where I am. But Ms. Beck, you had a...
Yeah, I think you're right. It is all the same amount of money. And I think the one thing that concerns me a bit about some of the points that Rob made is that I would hate to see us on the fly start doing something different on the MCPS fund balance. And I really think that's a global, larger policy that the committee, GO, would probably want to take up and spend a little more time. But I know there was an interest in getting this done quickly. So that is also a part of why we recommended fund balance now. You can always take less fund balance later if that is a way that to move forward now quickly without going down a path. I mean, I think our finance people would want to give some input in terms of fund balance. What's the right fund balance for our ancillary agencies and those kinds of things. It does seem to me that we have to appropriate money, whether it's out of your fund balance or whether it's out of the general fund anyway. So any new stuff has to come back here no matter. So that was our preference.
Sorry. I completely appreciate and understand where you're coming from, Ms. Beck. Again, it's not wrong in anybody's perspective on what this is. It's just an opinion of which one you prefer is quite honestly where we fall. I wish it were something, and I completely agree with you when it comes to policy for fund balance moving forward, and if there are some issues, that is something that certainly needs to be taken up by the next person who's going to be leading GO, as well as the person who's going to be leading. So we're leaving a lot of decisions to be made with the future council when it comes to that. But that's certainly, so let me actually I want to turn to my colleagues first. So let me turn to Councilmember Jawando, followed by Councilmember Navarro, and then turn to council staff as well.
Well, I would like to hear what council staff says, and then I'll...
Ms. McGuire.
Thank you. I did just want to focus here. Okay. I did just want to clarify a couple of issues that were raised. The issue of unassigned fund balance actually is addressed in one of the council's policies on reserve and fiscal policies, and that policy specifically states that MCPS is not to have a budgeted fund balance reserve. So the points in terms of the amount of reserve, the council does deal with that a little differently in here in Maryland, and certainly the structure of the funding authority being the council and the final appropriation authority does alter a little bit how the county engages in its reserve policy. And so I did just want to say that regardless of whether it's been up and down in terms of the end of year fund balance for just based on what's happened in that given year, the council certainly has the benefit of unassigned fund balance, unexpended fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. The council has benefit of using that funding as a resource for MCPS at any point in the future. That could include this, it could include next year, and certainly could include any of the points that were raised. But I do want to be clear, though, that the council specifically does not, and I know Mrs. Navarro knows this well, but I do want to just emphasize the council does not consider the agencies having separate fund balances as part of its reserve policy. The council's reserve policy relates only to the general fund, and many of the emergencies that were referenced would be addressed certainly by the general fund if an emergency arose. That is absolutely the council's responsibility, frankly, in addition to its prerogative. So I just wanted to make that point. And so again, these are available funds. State law does require that once funds are appropriated to MCPS, they must always be used for MCPS. However, the council, again, as the funding authority, has the discretion of when and how to direct those funds for purposes that the board requests. It certainly is absolutely true that these funds could be needed in '24, and I would certainly appreciate that they may be part of that. However, again, this is also a valid purpose for those funds.
I appreciate that. We got the great benefit of you having been both sides of the street, so to speak. And it is all the same money. We all agree it's a great program. We want it to happen. This is just about where it comes from. But so if I, just to put a finer point on what you said, Mr. McGuire, our adopted fiscal policy is to not have reserves at funding agencies and as a part of a policy. Am I restating that correctly?
You are stating that correctly. There is a slight difference for the college because the college also floats its own bonds.
That's right.
So that is one key difference. The college, again, has responsibility for its own debt issuance. MCPS does not, and that is the primary difference. But even with the college, this fiscal policy does put parameters around that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your points about, like, best practice in the field. I used to work for Sherrod Brown, a senator from Ohio, and I used to have nightmares about the levies that used to have to pass in Ohio to get things funded, like, or the schools were just like shut down, right? And obviously we're not in that situation. Thankfully, we have a much better system where there will never be a situation where we don't take care of half of our budget and all of our kids and students and families. And so, I think we should follow our fiscal policy, if that's our policy. I'd like to hear from the GO chair, but it would seem that we have those policies. Well, I understand everyone wants flexibility. I think in this instance, it probably makes sense to stick with that and have the source of funds be the reserve. So that'd be my thought.
No, I agree. Especially because, even though we do have a policy, we had years when we were not necessarily following that policy. But there's a reason why, we've had to deal with a lot of very difficult fiscal times, and we're trying as much as possible to be disciplined and follow, obviously, the policies. I think this isn't a really important program, and as it was said earlier, yes, flexibility is important, but we always step up to provide the resources that the school system needs. So I do think this would be very appropriate use of that money. So I agree with that. We should use that.
All right, so we have a majority of the committee that feels as though we should take this out of reserve, so that will be how we move forward. It's not a 2-1. I don't count votes when we have when we have a little bit of quote unquote dissension. It's just it moves forward with a yes. So I think overall, it will just be something that we'll just need to be cognizant of when we move forward, understanding that what our policy is going to be, and this is what much to Ms. Beck was talking about before, needs to be clarified if we're continuing, and especially when the county executive proposes as a part of his budget, utilizing reserves each and every year to help fund the school system. Then you can't have a policy that goes counter to what your practice is each and every year. So it's either one or the other. And, so we'll just need to pick and choose what it is and how we want that function to be. I think that moving forward provides more clarity. Again, $750,000 is not going to make a difference in the large scheme of things in our budgets across the board, whether it comes from reserves or comes from the CIP part of TechMod. But at the end of the day, I think there is a larger issue that's at play here that does need to be decided at some point. We had some major issues last year when it came to the college and utilization of fund balance. And so, again, our continued reliance upon fund balance to help fund budgetary aspects for us is something that we do just need to take a closer look at. So, Councilmember Jawanda. All right. So we're going to move forward with recommendation of the county executive and council staff. All right. Thank you so much. All right. We're on to our second item. Our second item is an update on our blueprint. And so I invite our folks, Dr. Patrick Murphy, who's the Deputy Superintendent for Montgomery County Public Schools, Dr. Peggy Pugh, Chief Academic Officer for MCPS, Ms. Bacquier, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Coordinator, sorry, it's a longer title, with Montgomery County Public Schools, Sydney Pinkard, Future Employees Initiative Coordinator, Dr. Susan Marks, Interim Chief, Human Resources and Development, Stephen Bowden, Supervisor, Foundations Office, Montgomery County Public Schools, Dr. Genevieve Floyd, Supervisor, Career and Post-Secondary Partnerships, and Irina Lagrange, who is Director of Department of College and Career Readiness and District-Wide Programs for Montgomery County Public Schools. So we may not have seats for everyone, but certainly for those who are speaking first, and then we can rotate through. I'm going to just make some quick, very, very quick comments and turn to my colleagues for any other comments they may have. But did just want to say, when it comes to the blueprint, obviously, serving on the Kerwin Commission for 3 years and working intimately on these plans was incredibly important. And one of the things that I thought was great for us was our attention not only to early care and education, but also to career and college readiness. And the reason why is because we've seen over the past decade, I would say, the continued challenges that we have in our workforce. Folks having to import electricians from other states to do work here in this state. I think Ohio, if I remember correctly, in terms of one of our discussions with Montgomery College and with others, was one of the places where we saw a large amount of our import of electricians come from. Many folks know if they've had something go wrong in their home, the extended time that they have to wait for someone to come out and provide the service. We, collective society, and Montgomery County is not immune to this, got on this path of thinking that these blue-collar jobs, as we have, as the nomenclature, were something that we didn't need to focus on in Montgomery County Public Schools. So much so that when it came to our career and counseling offices, all the college stuff would be up front in the guidance counselor offices, and everything else would be kind of hidden off in another area. We actually had this conversation in this committee some years ago, and now it's completely changed to where you see that. So thank you for continuing to, again, adapt and make sure that we're in a better place. I will tell you that as the husband of a person who's in the service industry, who, and she always doesn't like me putting her business out there, but I've said it millions of times before, my wife didn't go to college. She went straight into the workforce from high school and became very successful and is about to open up a brand new salon in downtown Bethesda as we speak. The thing about it is that I think it's very interesting is that we, again, still, although we embrace those careers and say that they're good, we don't hold them to the same high esteem as we do for being a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer, whatever the case may be. In fact, we don't even do the same when it comes to our profession of teaching. I always say that when I go to the career days that are at schools, you can get an indication of where folks are in terms of where their priorities are from us promoting different career pathways. And it's interesting, I've yet to, at one of my ones that I visited, I won't name the schools I've been to because I've been to a lot, for their career days, I've never seen a teacher give a presentation. And people are nodding because they know that they haven't seen it also, which is very interesting. And it says something about if we don't say it, if we don't put it in front of our kids, then they don't see it. They don't necessarily understand about it and why it's important. And so I think for us, it really is important for us to continue to push that all of these career pathways are incredibly important. And so it's not just about going to college. It is about setting yourself up for success and ensuring that you're able to do what you need to do. There are so many, families out here who need their children as they graduate from school to continue to contribute to the household. It's imperative for them and their families and their younger siblings. And so from that standpoint, that's why this new vision of how we embrace CCR matters so much. It truly is equity driven, I feel, because it again understands that not every person wants to, needs to go to college to be successful. It's true, we've seen it. Just look at the founders of Apple. I mean, just as one. There are so many examples that are out there. It doesn't mean that you don't need a quality education as a foundation. And so that's the key. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we're giving our students what they need so that when they leave those doors of high school, they are prepared and ready. And the institutes of higher education will always be there and be open and accessible and affordable if you do need to get additional skills to continue your career journey. That's what's important. So I want to turn to my colleagues because this is a really important topic. This is one where I think, again, we spent a lot of time on the Kerman Commission talking and debating about. And this is one of the ones I have to note to where there was consensus across the board. Democrats, Republicans, businessmen, education, all together, all agreed this was something we needed to focus our efforts on. There was no dissension as there was in some of the other aspects of the blueprint. This one was unanimous amongst everyone because everyone agrees that when it comes to workforce development, when it comes to making sure that all our career pathways are filled, that we have those jobs that are available for our individuals that are here in our community, it all comes together through having this kind of model. So with that, we turn to Councilmember Navarro, followed by Councilmember Joano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of you for working so hard on this particular piece of this very important blueprint that I no doubt will shape the future of education here in Maryland. This one piece is also very critical. We talk about the pandemic and how it has changed everything. We were just talking about devices and as an accelerator of equity. And it has changed a lot of things, and we're seeing how the work space has really morphed and shifted. We also are looking at how the workplace in general in industries and the demand is also, I think, shifting and morphing. And so there's a lot of attention, I think, being paid right now to what is really actually going to be those occupations that are going to be in demand. Do we have a workforce that is ready to meet that moment? So it's, I think in many ways, I mean, we definitely are in flux, but when you bring it down to the micro level, let's say to our county, I hear over and over and over again when we start talking about this whole notion of positive youth development and at-risk youth and whatever, that the one thing that our youth always brings up is that they want a job. And I don't think that in Montgomery County we have necessarily brought to scale youth employment to that degree. So I feel like this is really a really wonderful opportunity to match, this incredible effort to those, to meet the needs of industry that we are seeking, but also to be able to employ and give our youth an opportunity to have a trajectory. As we always say, in life, things are not necessarily linear. Not everybody is going to graduate high school, go to college. And, there are different ways in which our young people seek economic self-sufficiency. I think Montgomery College has always played an amazing role in helping our students navigate that. But I do believe that this is a very optimal moment to scale up and to get real serious about how we're going to, meet the needs of our young people, but also, again, of our different industries, and also how do we expand our economic development goals utilizing, workforce development in this way and be really creative. So super exciting, and, you know, look forward to hearing some of the updates, but then also seeing how this will, you know, takes us in a very different direction here in the county.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody, and agree with my colleagues 100%, and appreciate these updates from your team about where we are on the blueprint. It does provide a great kind of jumping off point for us to continue a lot of the work that we want to see here at the county level, and it's a good reminder of where we need to go. You know, college and career ready, we've been talking about that for a long time, you know, going back to you know, at least the last 15 years or so, probably even before that. And there's always some discussion, okay, what does that mean? And that's what the blueprint is a great thing, and we'll see your presentation that it kind of says, here's what it means. You know, that every student is ready and has multiple pathways that they can go in and that they've learned, and by the time they get to the end of their high school career, they've been exposed to a lot, and they're prepared to take whatever that next step may be. And if they focused in on a career choice, or they want to go to other post-secondary education or training, they can do that. And there's multiple doors for them to go through. And I agree that, you know, in some of these areas we've done, and we'll get into it, we've done better than others as far as emphasizing, you know, what those, and having those multiple doors to go through. Councilmember Navarro just mentioned one that, you know, all of us are very passionate about, like the career and technical education programs, but obviously also just work-based learning experiences throughout the K-12 experience, right? And I see Dr. Floyd here, and we have these kind of pieces. You know, we've got we did Summer Rise for the last 5 years. We've got that program. We do internships throughout the year, not as much as we all would like, right? You know, we do things at the lower grades where we kind of expose people. We do career days, you know, the whole thing. But how do we pull it all together so that every student gets a full exposure and does a work-based learning opportunity before they leave? I think every student should do that, you know, every student. And we need to get there and have a plan to get there. In addition to, obviously, our strong tradition of making sure everyone who has the opportunity to go to college, if that's what their path is, whether it be community college, whether it be a dual enrollment program, whether it be specific training that's offered that gets you into a job right after, you know, like that we do great at Montgomery College and in other places. So I just think this is the right time to be talking about all these issues, and I'm looking forward to the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Joanna. You actually made me think about something that, you know, was just announced maybe a couple months ago, and that's the CHIPS Act. So the president and his administration have declared that the United States will become a leading chip manufacturer in the next decade. Well, the only way to do that is to make sure that we're giving our students the necessary skills at both the high school and collegiate level, and that applies to community college as well as our four-year institutions. It has to be a core component. And so, again, if these things are to happen, my message to the White House was that you need to incorporate our education systems. We are embarking on so many things as a nation, whether it's dealing with the pandemic that we had before us, that was an all hands on deck for everyone. And so those lab bench workers, right, that we trained going from Montgomery County Public Schools to taking certification at Montgomery College and then entering the workforce were the ones who were developing here in Montgomery County with Montgomery County companies vaccinations that would then save millions of lives across the world. That's why it's so important, right? And so you really go from there and say, okay, that's why this alignment is so necessary for us. We need to ensure that whatever it is that our needs are across society, that we are answering the call. And it's across the board. We never know what tomorrow's going to hold as our next urgent matter for this nation, for this world. And that's why these kinds of standards, in terms of ensuring that we're providing flexibility across the board and giving our students all different kinds of pathways to enter into different careers, is just, it's tantamount to our success as a nation. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, or do we want to turn it over to Ms. Backey?
No, I'll just say very briefly, thank you all for MCPS joining us for this item. We did have a session on October 3rd on the blueprint. We'll continue to have a few more sessions on the blueprint, but I did want to note that the follow-up responses to the committee's questions can be found on circle page 11 of today's packet on that session. But otherwise, I'll turn it over to Mr. Backey. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with my colleagues. First, I'd just like to say that Sydney Pinkert is here in the audience, but Mr. Travis Wiebe, who's the Director of Human Capital Management in MCPS, is joining today to talk about the teacher pipeline or answer some of those questions. And then I will turn it over to Dr. Murphy.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Backey. Councilman Rice, Councilman Navarro, and Councilman Gerlando, it's good to see you. My name is Pat Murphy. I bring greetings from Dr. McKnight and share your same concerns and some of your comments a little bit earlier. Councilman Rice, I have heard you talk several times, and I parallel your background a little bit with mine. My wife has been a hairstylist now for over 40 years. And so when I've heard you speak about your wife and some of the experiences that she had, it reminds me of what we're talking about here today. She was very successful. She had several salons in Georgetown. But the key to what we're talking about is she continued her education. She graduated, she became a hairstylist, but then she continued her education to allow her to grow her businesses and be successful. So I think this is very parallel to what we're talking about today. I think it's refreshing to me as someone new to Montgomery County and knowing the history and the background and the reputation of not only the county but the school district, that there is this collaboration that's going on. Councilman Rice, you were on the Kerwin Commission. The fact that this body here today, the Education Committee, is talking and concerned and focused on that, I think speaks well and really should reassure our community about the priorities around the blueprint. In talking with Dr. McKnight, many of the conversations have also surrounded the fact that the blueprint is the floor. We in Montgomery County want to exceed that floor. It's a framework. It's a launching pad. But we believe also there's an opportunity for us to excel, and we are excelling, as you'll hear, in a number of areas today. And there's some areas that we need to continue to look at for continuous growth and improvement. I was wondering if you could flip to the next slide, please. So there have been several discussions about the various pillars from primary or early childhood education, diversity of teachers and leaders, career path is what we're talking about today, also ensuring student success, and then governance and accountability. So our focus today is going to stay on that middle pillar. I want to just outline a few things that have already been shared, but I think are important to say. I think one of the issues is we need to recognize that we need to eliminate achievement gaps, and we also need to create opportunities for access and make those equitable, because we serve a very diverse community that is changing and it's also growing. I think Councilman Navarro, you pointed out, I think, one very true fact that we all experienced here with the pandemic recently, and that we need all hands on deck, that we need to make sure that folks either have the background or the ability or the training that they can fill a number of roles and responsibilities. And I think that will continue to play itself out as we move forward. And there are a number of fronts we are addressing that on. We find it fundamental that the blueprint really brings to the center stage increasing programs and initiatives that will expand access for students. Again, in Montgomery County, I think we're fortunate that we have a lot of those things in motion, but how can we build on that? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So thank you for your leadership, for your role here in the county in working not only with MCPS, but the county, the Maryland State Department of Education, and then all of the entities that make up our community. Councilman Rice, you and I spoke just briefly before we started this afternoon, and I think it really talks about the economy and the welfare of our community. So how are we preparing students so that they can be active members of our community, that they can lead successful lives, and that they can become a part of our community and contribute in some way, shape, or fashion. So this is as much an education conversation as it is an economic conversation. So we look forward to sharing some of the items with you this afternoon, and also answering some of your questions about how we can move forward. So I'll turn it back to Ms. Backey now to lead us through the presentation.
Ms. Backey, and I really, really apologize, but I think that, Dr. Murray, you just made me remember something that I completely forgot, which is really important to this discussion. And it is that if we care about the rising rates that we're seeing in crime, especially with our young people, when I talk to people like Luis Cardona, and we talk to him about what it is that our kids are saying. Our kids are saying that they don't see themselves as doing anything or accomplishing anything or even living past age 18. When that happens, that despair sets in, and therefore you feel as though all is lost, and therefore there is nothing to lose. If all is lost and there's nothing that's there for you, it does not matter what you engage in, what you do, what crimes you commit, whether you go to jail, whether you're shot and killed in the street, it doesn't matter. This is actually more serious, and thank you for pointing out, it's much more serious than just about education. This is also about saving lives. This is about reducing crime rates. This is about reducing all kinds of other things that we care about in our community if we get this right. If we reach kids and show them that regardless of what your passions are and your interests are, there is a future for you, then it does make a difference in all those things. And you have less of those children who then think that there is nothing for them. Because when you talk to people at Clarksburg Correctional Facility, when you talk to people at Jessup, they will tell you that they always felt there was nothing for them. And so we owe it to them to put that in front, to show them that there are things that are there for you. There are people who are growing up in these urban areas who want to be the next Jose Andres and just haven't had an opportunity to cook. And so the ability to be able to do those kinds of things, and they're also embarrassed because they don't want to say to their friends, yeah, I want to be a cook. But guess what? It's a great, incredible profession that's a solid job that goes across so many. You can be a private chef. You can work at Topgolf and be the chef there. Or you can go be the chef at Morton's or at Ruth's Chris. Opportunities are endless, all across the board, right? It's that kind of stuff that we've got to make sure that we deliver to our kids. And that is the reason why, because our economy is stronger as a result because of it as well. The more people who are gainfully employed, who are working into our tax base, into our system, ensures that we have less reliance. So again, Democrat or Republican, the more people are working and the more people who are achieving more money is a good thing for everyone across the board. So with that, I'm sorry, but thank you, Dr. Murphy, for reminding me of that important point. Ms. Backey.
The Accountability and Implementation Board held summer interactive workshops for the college and career readiness, including the CETE, throughout the summer to ensure an understanding of the blueprint with the public at large and include a wide cross-section of stakeholders. The draft blueprint comprehensive report criteria was shared on October 13th, and there will be a public hearing on November 10th and many opportunities to provide some feedback to the AIB. The final criteria for reporting will be distributed to LEAs by December 1st, and the comprehensive blueprint implementation plan, or the first phase of comprehensive reporting, will be due by March 2023. Student pathways to career pipelines. MCPS has a robust offering of post-CCR pathways, including 22 associate's degrees and 51 CTE programs, as well as college prep courses such as advanced placement and international baccalaureate courses in every high school. Expanded partnerships with Montgomery College to collaborate and explore non-credit and workforce development opportunities is happening. We have enhanced engagement with industry and post-secondary partners to leverage program advisory boards and local boards, local advisory to provide career enriching experiences at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. MCPS is using state LEADS grants funds to expand our partnerships with the Urban Alliance for expanded apprenticeship opportunities. We're working in partnership with the local Workforce Development Board to develop career counseling in collaboration with Montgomery College and universities at Shady Grove. We're continuing to use Title IV grant dollars to support industry certification and the apprenticeship grants to expand electrical school to apprenticeship programs for CTE students. We're continuing to grow pre-college or dual enrollment programs that allow students to earn credit while they're still in high school and graduate with an associate's degree. This past year, 264 of our students graduated from Montgomery College, and that's more than any other group in the state. MCPS is working in partnership with local universities to provide college tuition reimbursement and additional support at the undergraduate and graduate levels for employees seeking teacher certification, with an emphasis on expanding the candidate pool with respect to representing diverse backgrounds and systemic areas of critical need. These programs support field experiences, supplemental training, and supervisory support by colleges, universities, and MCPS. There are 9 employee higher education partnerships at undergraduate and graduate levels, leading to certification in critical content needs areas, including elementary education, special education, Spanish, French, English, ESOL, and secondary STEM. The expansion of current partnerships for alternative certification programs to support employees who hold conditional certification. And at our last hearing, we had some conversations about veterans and other groups who have degrees in other content areas wanting to become teacher certified. These programs are accelerated and well matched to career changers entering the teaching profession. And I'm happy to report that we currently have 345 MCPS new teacher hires this school year who were former MCPS students. Student pathway supports. There are supports such as summer school tutoring and Khan Academy. They were previously accessed at grade 11, along with access to courses to earn credits towards the high school completer. They will now be available at grade 10 for students who are not meeting the CCR standard, and that will be available in grades 9 through 12. Montgomery College has non-credit courses that can also be accessed by students to increase their math and English skills, and that will allow them to strengthen some of their foundational skills. And the blueprint talks a little bit about the English, and it talks about reading, and it talks about math and increasing science skills where practicable. So there are some opportunities for non-credit courses to build those skills. And then the CREA, the Career Readiness Education Academy program. Its expansion supports students with interrupted education to provide academic and career education prior to exiting high school. And we do have some students who are entering MCPS who may come later in their high school careers, who have had interrupted education and have come here, and now they're entering into high school. The expansion of summer programs like Montgomery Can Code, cybersecurity camps, and after-school robotics clubs to further support opportunities for all students to explore STEM pathways and prepare them for post-secondary studies and careers. And Dr. Pugh will talk a little bit about some of the data that we'd like to share with you today.
Good afternoon. My name is Peggy Pugh. I'm your new Chief Academic Officer, and I'm proud to say that you should be proud of some of the enhancements and improvements that have been made during a pandemic. If you'll notice in the graph, the course enrollments for students from FY20 to FY22 have significantly increased. And that also increased the number of unique students taking those courses. We still have work to do in the demographics. As you'll notice, they're disproportionate, and we'll work specifically to try and make sure that our students have access to these dual enrollment programs. But you should be proud of the work that's been done to develop the pathways that are there, because you've shown a significant increase. And on the next slide, you'll see your career technical education results. Also, a significant increase from FY19 to FY21, actually 20 to 21. You'll see 511 industry certificates, and then this last year, 818 certificates, serving over 6,000 students. Again, you'll see the typical disproportionality, although working to make significant efforts on that. There are a number of measures for career technical education that we're held accountable to, that we report on and create systemic plans in order to make sure we're improving those areas. But a lot of accomplishments in your CTE and dual enrollment data over the last 2 years.
I'll talk for a moment about some of the challenges that we are currently facing. And in the earlier presentation here, it was mentioned that we just received recently some clarification from MSDE and the AIB related to tuition costs for dual enrollment for FY23. So that brought some unexpected costs for this fiscal year. And then we're still waiting for some clarification that we'll receive regarding FY24 in terms of looking at all of the tuition, fees, transportation. There's some clarifications about what things that we will need to be able to cover in the costs for FY24. So we're making some adjustments and some shifts in order to accommodate that. And then we're working with an interim standard for college and career ready. Currently, a student can be deemed not college ready, but already accepted to college or taking college level courses based on the state definition or criteria. And I think one of the things that has happened is that this fall, FY23, there was a college and career study, a research study that was to be released, and that was supposed to they were supposed to share the findings from that and then determine cutoffs and set the standards. But that research study is not complete, and it will not be shared until the fall next year. And so therefore, they're sort of working with an interim standard. And so, just taking a look at what the interim standard is and the assessments, we have a lot of questions surrounding that. And then also some limitations in the accepted assessments or measurements to determine CCR ready. So maybe moving from 6 or 7 or 8 different ways to measure college and career ready to now being limited to just a few. That might cause us to have more students who are deemed not college and career ready. There might be less ways that we can use various assessments and ways to measure students. And with the demographics of our students and different learning styles and backgrounds and things, there could potentially be some impact there. So we're, starting to take a look at what some of those differences might be, what the impact of some of that, and we're still waiting to get some further clarification from the state and the AIB. So we're working through all of those. Some of it is going to be tentative, and there will ultimately be some impact, some fiscal implications, but we don't have all the information that we need just yet in order to figure that out. Next, I'll just talk for a moment about collaborations and partnerships. MCPS is very fortunate, and we value and appreciate support from program advisory committees, Montgomery County Collaboration Board, which provides a strong link to our business stakeholders in support of our staff and students. Each group includes representatives from MCPS, Montgomery College, universities at Shady Grove, business leaders, and members of the Workforce Development Board. These vibrant partnerships allow business leaders and partners to work closely with schools to review curricular offerings, monitor program success and needs, and provide internships and career enriching experiences and guide programs to ensure a clear pipeline from elementary school through college and into the workforce. The programs are designed to allow many opportunities to move into or out of the trajectory depending upon student interest. So we're very fortunate to have many of these various community partnerships working in conjunction with the school system. For further information for the public that may be watching and to provide some feedback, there's some websites and information to provide feedback to MCPS, to the AIB, and to the Maryland State Department of Education. I'll pause there and we'll begin for our questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Packey, and I do have one, and then I'll turn to Councilmember Duando, who also I know has a question as well. Mine is specifically related to the tuition for dual enrollment, and so I'm just curious as to, there's a representative on AIB that's supposed to represent school systems, correct? Is that,
I know that the AIB member, Mara Doss, is sort of the point person for the college and career readiness.
Okay.
That area, and then Dr. Stapleton represents sort of the shared accountability and the data piece. So.
Okay. And so what's been the conversation with them specifically when it comes to this for the 24 jurisdictions, not just Montgomery County, but when it comes to this, because I don't think that the intent ever was, and of course everything's always legislation versus crafting of the premise around the current commission recommendations, but never was the intention for LEAs to bear the cost burden, understanding that so many across the state aren't the same affluence that Montgomery County is. And while we might be able to find and utilize reserves to pay for, tuition for dual enrollment, other jurisdictions don't have that same flexibility. So I'm curious as to whether or not there's been conversations around that.
There have been some conversations with the AIB, and I think it was a matter of the conversations that occurred within the commission, but also how the actual statute was written. And so although we don't have the final official standards for the CCR and the not CCR ready, we had to look to the statute, and that's what we were told from the state and the AIB. The statute actually says that these enrollment costs would be covered immediately, not necessarily when that standard was set. So I think the conversations have really been around that. I think some of the school districts are trying to determine ways in which they'll be able to cover the additional costs. Some may not be able to work with maintenance of effort, or they may be having to make some additional cuts or efficiencies in order to be able to have those costs. And I think the feeling of the AIB is that it was unanticipated, but that they don't want to provide a barrier at this time for students to be able to have access to those dual enrollments. And so they feel that although it may pose a hardship in terms of providing additional opportunities and access for students, they really don't want to slow that down. They really want that to move forward.
So I think it may be one in which, and Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, if we might be able to send a memo to Ms. Winger with our Office of Intergovernmental Affairs and ensure that they're actively involved in this to make sure, with my colleagues, of course, consent. But I think that we need to be very explicit in terms of our expectations, especially understanding that the state currently is with a surplus. And so from that standpoint, certainly I couldn't find a better way of us to utilize state surplus funds than to ensure that so many of our kids are able to reach affordability when it comes to furthering their education. So, especially with the new administration coming in that understands all too well about why this is important and how much of a difference it makes, hopefully there will be some receptive ears when it comes to that. So.
Absolutely, and through the blueprint governance, this information has been shared with Ms. Winger and Ms. Boucher. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll just make sure we follow up on that. Councilmember Jawanda. I'm sorry, Councilmember Navarro, because I know she has to leave. Go ahead.
No, thank you. Not so much of a question, but first, a lot of work has been done, and I'm very pleased to see how there's so much alignment. Because it's all about leveraging all of the different assets that we have. We keep talking about that all the time. And I'm seeing how this is really becoming a lot more aligned. But I think both at the state level and I think locally, it would be really great to make sure that this is not seen only through the lens of education, but that, for example, workforce development, boards or, economic development boards, et cetera, that there is that intersection. And I was, commenting with my colleague, Councilmember Jawanda, for the next council as they're looking at committee restructuring, like this should be added to that piece where you have joint committees, because it is so connected to workforce, to economic development, and yes, even public safety, as we were talking before about, all of the positive youth development that we usually do. So there's a lot of points there that do connect, that will elevate this, and also we'll be able to leverage additional, resources or assets that we have in the county so that we can scale up. Because it's always about the scalability, right? Like we can have incredible plans, but if we're only doing very small numbers, then the impact is not going to help us move the needle necessarily. So just looking at that, I think would be really awesome. And I apologize, but I have to go to another meeting.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you, and agreed, so more focus. I had Scott Pearson, is that his last name? What's Scott's last, who the workforce, he's not there anymore, my understanding at MCPS. Murphy, I knew a Scott Pearson in another life. Scott Murphy. He was with MCPS and he did the.
Scott Murphy went to Frederick County Public Schools.
Right. Who's filled that position?
Irina LaGrange is here.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Nice to see you, Irene. And what's the name of that position again? There you go. Got it. Okay. I know that you guys have the long MCPS wins for the longest names. So, we had started a process with, you can come up, maybe come up. Yeah. So I don't have to look past Dr. Floyd. We had started a process with Scott before he left where we brought in Urban Alliance, met with them, doesn't have to be them, but, to try to work on a work-based learning plan and continuum so that we can expand the numbers of students we're reaching, right? And you two are sitting together, so it's good. So it's probably have both of you sit together, and you're both wearing green. Yeah. So, he transitioned. We had a meeting. There was a proposal, and there was obviously a transition. Councilmember Barrow's point, something I've been really pushing on, so is Councilmember Rice. How do we get a plan in place to really dramatically increase the numbers of students who are experiencing work-based learning throughout the year? Summer's a component, during internships are a component, and so Urban Alliance was going to go through had offered to go through a process to try to help us, figure out how to do that. Doesn't have to be them, but I do want to, as part of this work, I think it's really important, and I welcome a quick update on your plans in that area, and just would encourage that, if in the transition it got lost in the shuffle, we could pick that conversation back up.
So thank you for that, and it has been a good transition. So I'm coming to this role from having been with MCPS for 20 years in the role of a principal. In this role, I have an amazing team. So of course, Dr. Floyd has been by my side in helping me transition, but also the rest of my team as well. They're here in the audience, and so absolutely looking at the data, looking at the 51 different programs, looking at the pathways for onboarding, not just through career technical programs, but also through dual enrollment, and really working with the different partnerships and making sure that that work continues. So we're happy to share a plan with you. We're in the process, again, of making sure that those numbers are increased, and we're not looking at small numbers. We're really looking at internship, apprenticeship, and the workforce development. So we will be able to speak to that.
We can meet, follow up offline, but I don't want to give Dr. Floyd an opportunity to, but I want to see, and I'll be back, so I'll be asking again. I'd like to see a real robust plan of how all these pieces are going to fit together to, over the next, 5-10 years, whatever the timeline is, that we're going to get to dramatically increased numbers of work-based learning opportunities, which we should.
Absolutely, and thank you for asking that. Urban Alliance continues to be a very important partner with us. In fact, work-based learning has been elevated in our strategic plan. We have a supervisor of work-based learning now, Mr. Sean Crosser, who's in the audience, who's elevated that work throughout the district, because within the district, our strategic plan calls for us to ensure at least 45% of our students are graduating with the work-based learning experience by 2025. So we are partnering with Urban Alliance. We have secured a LEADS grant. We are asking them to serve as our intermediary, because we need employers to help us with this heavy lift, particularly around apprenticeships. So Urban Alliance has not gotten lost in the shuffle. We are hand in hand with them because we have to scale this. Blueprint requires that we have an apprenticeship or industry certification 45% by 2030-31. So there's a lot of work to be done. We are going to rely heavily on institutions or external partners like Urban Alliance and our workforce development boards to really stand all of this work up. Because as was mentioned earlier, we have to do more than what is required in Blueprint. Making sure that our students have English and math proficiency is not sufficient. So we are definitely looking at the experiences that our students have, the work-based learning experiences at the higher levels, and all of the experiences along the continuum. So thank you.
Got to ladder up to
yes,
that.
Sir.
And, we've worked on this in the past, and it's great to hear that that's a baseline goal of 45%. And obviously, I think we still have roughly around 50,000 high school students-ish. Or is it's a little higher than that now?
secondary student, we have over 87,000. But high school alone,
That's
around 50.
including middle.
That's including middle.
Yeah.
But you're about right with that.
And so, yeah, so that's good. I'd love to follow up. And yeah, Urban Alliance is one of many great partners. But there's actually, the president, I think, just visited their program, actually, former President Obama. The other question I had, you addressed a little bit, was the industry partners. And, that I know it's not necessarily a core competency always, but that sounds like you're staffing up. And I know, so I'd love to hear more about how that's going in expanding those folks that we're working with so that we can have places for our young people to be.
Okay, I was going to ask Mr. Steve Bowden if he'd come forward, because he's working with all of the foundation
I know
boards.
Steve, yeah.
And they're working to share new ideas and expand some of the various ideas that we have. So I was going to ask him to come to the table and talk about the foundation boards and those other partnerships.
And as Steve takes his seat, I can share, we have 13 programs advisory committees. 4 of them are the foundations, and Mr. Bowden can share more about that. But we are very deliberate in inviting them into the conversation because we have to have their support around apprenticeships. And in addition to Mr. Bowden's efforts on the 4 foundation boards, with the other 9 program advisory committees, Mr. Sean Crossa, as well as Kelly Dunston, who's not here with us today, and myself, we are having those conversations. We are inviting Mr. Crossa in to talk to these advisory boards to talk about the benefits and the value, and to commit to hiring our students as apprenticeships. And not only through Summer Rise, that's a great experience, but we really have to scale up and do more. But Mr. Bowden can certainly speak specifically to the 4 programs that he has.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for having us. As you know, the business community has been a very, very strong component of the programs and wonderful partners. They're not just folks that sign the bottom line and say they work with us. They are truly partners at the table working with us in terms of program development and making sure that their trajectory that you heard earlier from K through workforce is really working. As was mentioned by Ms. Backey, we have a Montgomery County Collaboration Board which encompasses all of our career clusters. So we have program advisory committees and people that meet at the program level, and that information is elevated to both our school board and as well as the Montgomery College Board of Trustees, so that the recommendations by our local business community is included in everything from program development to career opportunities to, I know many times they come and speak with you. So, one of the, I think one of the more outstanding examples is one that you mentioned earlier, the Montgomery Can Code partnership, and I think that was an outgrowth of some of the work that happened both here, but also was institutionalized through our IT foundation and the work from Apple and other business partners as well as MCEDC. And so, as Dr. Floyd mentioned earlier, we do also have 4 nonprofit 501c3 educational foundations that sponsor businesses that students have the opportunity to try things. You mentioned earlier, hey, it's really important that kids graduate with either, both the skills to go to college, but also an understanding of where they want to go. And it's so, so important that we find out what our superpowers are while we're still in school, before we go on to study, before we go on to a job, before we do it. Because there are things that we're really good at and things that maybe we're not as good at. And we either need to develop those or look for something that we, are very, able to be very proficient in. And so I think through some of these business models, through some of these other opportunities, kids have the opportunity to get out and try things and see what they're good at. And that way they can focus their studies on that.
Appreciate that. And last thing I'll mention is the tracking of everything, right? We had some numbers, and it's great to see those going in the right direction. But obviously we have a set of students for whom, they are connected to opportunities outside of the system, potentially. And so if there's a way to survey that or kind of collect that information, it's never going to be perfect. But I think, there's a whole set of students that are doing opportunities that we don't know about. And I think we should try to track to the extent that we can some of that, and it might lead to other opportunities for you all to follow up with some of those businesses or companies or industries. And then obviously tracking what we do through the programs, that all the various programs that we're running through the foundation, through Summarize, the internships, the apprenticeships, through all our CTE, just so, because so we can have this robust, sense of where we're going. I saw a student, I spoke to Civic Circle, which is one of our, it's just an elementary school, it's an elementary program for young people to teach them civics, and it's in our schools, and I was at Arcola Elementary, and I went and spoke, and actually one of the people helping as part of that program, she was a 2018, which was the first year Summer Rise student, and she was placed within, I think she told me she was at Montgomery College working with ACEs or something, and it helped her figure out that she wanted to work with kids and work in the nonprofit arena. And it was like one of those full circle, in a very short period of time. It's only 5 years or 4 years. And she came up to me, she was like, I remember, and it was great, and she wanted to take a picture. But just an example of, I think, the point Steve just made, but everyone's made, that we just have to help them interrogate what they want to do, and it's going to lead to positive outcomes. So, really excited, yeah. And good to see you. Please, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and say anything as well.
Good afternoon, Sean Kraza, Supervisor for Work-Based Learning, Councilmember Rice, Councilmember Chawando. So to that, add to what has been said, MCPS has a platform called Naviance, which we've used for career planning over time. And when you look at the kindergarten to career continuum, in MCPS, we have an interest in having students have multiple and different types of experiences over time. So to what you're explaining is what our next level of work is, looking at how to monitor that. I know in the work-based learning continuum, whether it be internship, apprenticeship, or site-based work experience, this year we are introducing a web-based portal platform where we can have all 25 high schools monitor student experiential learning opportunities and build the portfolio of opportunities students are able to access. One of our newer work-based learning programs, the Apprenticeship Maryland program, we're beginning with employer fields like in the construction, environmental sciences areas where they already have workforce development strategies in place. So when you look at the apprenticeship model, it's a great model for employers to identify entry-level positions that students in high school can begin accessing training for. And so, for example, it was mentioned earlier about the Maryland Apprenticeship Grant. We partnered with one of the many apprenticeship trade industries in the electrical area, independent electrical contractors, IEC Chesapeake. And traditionally, students would have to have a high school diploma or GED to be able to access year one of the electrical training. Well, in our partnership and also partnership with Maryland Department of Labor, students in their senior year of high school are able to access year one of the electrical journeyman training. So half of their school day is spent working for an electrical contractor Monday through Thursday. Every Friday they go to IEC Chesapeake for year one electrical training. In the afternoon they go back to their home high school and access the academic classes they need to graduate. Upon graduation, they transition to full-time employment and they complete years 2 through 4 in the evening at IEC Chesapeake. So that's one model that we piloted, and it seems to be working extremely well. So as we begin to help educate counselors and college career information coordinators and internship coordinators on how to communicate these information opportunities to students, another part of our work as we engage employers is to help them see how internship, apprenticeship can be a workforce development strategy, especially for entry-level positions that students might not normally or traditionally have access to. So that's part of our next level of work too, because we want to open up access and opportunity to all of our students and achieve as part of we said before, the MCPS strategic plan, focusing on at least 45% of our students accessing some form of experiential learning opportunity. So we are putting those systems and structures in place. We are engaging employers strategically so that we can, in partnership, work together to support the economic growth of Montgomery County.
That's great. Well, I'm excited you're in the role. Looks forward to talking more, and let's get it 100%. Yeah. We're MCPS, right? So thank you, Mr. Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Joando. And I want to double down on something that you said because I think it's incredibly important. And I think of my older daughter who went through school and had an internship throughout at a veterinary hospital, and now is about to graduate from Colorado State, majoring in zoology and about to go on to graduate school in veterinary medicine. Look, thank you, Montgomery County Public Schools. Not only is she going into a pathway that she loves and something that she always wanted to do, she is one of the founding members of the PAWS Club at Northwest High School that is focused on veterinary support for animals across the board. Now they've got multiple chapters throughout Montgomery County Public Schools, but is graduating in 3 years, and that's a testament to the rigor that also exists as well. So we provide it on all fronts, but I do feel as though what Councilmember Joando said in terms of being able to track, to understand, because it does have significant support and advantages, for those individuals. It made it easy for her to determine whether or not this was something she definitely wanted or didn't want to do. When you're living day in and day out in this career pathway, working, so also having gainful employment, and at the same time doing this, that's the kind of stuff that we want to see so that we know. And so we can follow, when we had done, back when I was in the General Assembly, we had talked about doing tracking, and really tracking kids from K all the way to J, and seeing what educational experiences they had, all kinds of other stuff, and then how that then impacted them when they got to their careers. And I think that seeing that data, we'll have it from those that are in our programs, but also adding in and trying to get, and just like Councilmember Joando said, I agree, you're not going to get 100% in terms of everyone who participates and gets that information, but even sending out a survey, and just asking where your kids work. Do your kids have a job? Are they employed? Like my daughter, who, my youngest, who works at AMC right now, and, it's very funny because I said, Kaylin, this is your opportunity because she wants to go into the culinary field. Well, AMC has dine-in, and has a kitchen where they actually cook things. And I said, so you start there, in concessions, and then you go into dine-in, and you get that experience. And so again, with some folks, you won't have the necessary, pathway that's directly aligned, but you can figure out ways to make it work for individuals. And I think that more of that guidance that we can give to families and to young people is just going to help them across the board. It's not always as hard as we make it out to be in terms of how you can gain that sort of experiential learning that really is, I think, imperative for us. And again, I can't tell you, Councilmember Joando knows, he ran the program, how many kids who came through just Summer Rise, only 3 weeks, right, and said, I do not want to do that job. That is not something for me. It has opened my eyes. I thought that was always going to be what I wanted to do, and guess what? Nope. And so, right, it's one of those, and that's right, exactly, and that's just as but that is just as valuable as the I loved it, and I know this is exactly what I want to do. I mean, when I think about all the money my parents spent on me and my aerospace engineering / computer science degree, that, I guess I'm kind of using it now, but not really. But it is one of those. I mean, it's the education that comes behind it, right? But it is one in which, for me, it really is to where you really have to step back for a moment and say, what is it that we're allowing our kids to experience and gain to help them in making those types of decisions? And because we pulled back on so many of the foundational careers that are out there that are so important to us, whether it's construction trades and all kinds of things. I mean, you talk to any foreman on the job and they'll always tell you about how they're still trying to get construction workers. I remember growing up, we had Tonka trucks, and it was like a thing where it was like, oh yeah, construction. But then it became, no, you don't want to do that. You know, well, people don't realize I have friends who are in construction who are easily making $125,000, $150,000, and they're not even supervisors. Just saying. They make as much as, right? Right.
If you ever have to hire an electrician or a plumber, you know how much they make per hour. It can be anywhere from 125 on up, 80 to.
Guess what? It's more than a council member makes. Just saying. I'm just saying. And so, it really is one where I think that folks need to remember and understand that there's so much that we're leaving out there on the table for folks. And so I think that we can do a much better job of incorporating all of that. So, my next question. Cost. Nothing in this world is free. And so I'm just curious, as when we talked about Blueprint and we alluded to some of the implications, i.e. some of the dual enrollment, where do you see us when it comes to, specifically with CCR, because I think that, again, there's a lot of things that haven't been put in place. You know, in some of the other aspects, you know, early care and education, we're building off of stuff we've been working on for a very long time, right? But some of this we're actually having to create and having to put a lot of work and effort into this. Where do we see ourselves from a budgetary standpoint when it comes to these kinds of things?
I believe that some of the projected estimated costs for FY24 might be $5.4 million, not including AP and IB. We still are waiting from the state to get from the state some information regarding transportation, but that would be covering books, materials, tuition. It's a larger complement of services that have to be provided in FY24 than FY23. So I think the early estimates would be something like 5.4, but those costs could increase.
Right.
And again, doesn't include AP and IB.
Now, is that, because I saw your chart that had projections of enrollment and where you were and the dramatic increase, does that incorporate that dramatic percentage of increase, or is it straight line as to what you're assuming for budget?
I think it incorporates some increase, but I think that once sort of the word gets out that these great programs are available, there will be more and more children who will have access to it and want to participate in it. So I think those are very early estimates, and I imagine that the cost could be significantly higher. I mean, I think any parent who would be able to have tuition costs or other types of fees covered that they may have had to previously cover, they would certainly want their children to access them. And as the word gets out from other students who participate, certainly those numbers will increase. So I think it's still completely an unknown. That's sort of an early estimate, I would say.
Okay. And thank you for jumping and seeing exactly where I was going with this, because I think that we will need to be careful. One of the things that we don't want is to set up something that is a great example and then deny people opportunity. You know, that because we know who then oftentimes loses, the folks who, parents, like I said at the very beginning of my comments, aren't engaged, don't know what questions to ask, don't know how to fight for their child, and so those are the ones who we want to be a part of this, who oftentimes end up getting left out if we limit, right? As I had said before about limiting access. And so I think that the community is very ripe for something like this. And so I want us to really, and so Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, if we can work to try and get some numbers just to help when it comes to anticipation of what something like this may be, I'd rather err on the side of more than less. Because at the end of the day, expenditures just go to fund balance that we don't use. Oh, sorry.
I think that
that's a whole other conversation for a whole other
the
day.
reason behind pushing forward with the FY23 tuition fee, because they don't want any students who could perhaps benefit from this opportunity not to get it this year. Although it was a short, turnaround time for us, and the communication was just recent, but it's still expanding opportunities.
Absolutely. No, well, I think that, again, for us, it really is one where we do need to err on the side of making sure that we have those slots available for individuals. And I do feel as though with all the work that I know, and unfortunately Councilmember Navarro left, but I know when it comes to a lot of her action in terms of just informing people, especially in our Latinx community, about so many options and things that are available. We're starting in with Street Outreach Network and others. When I think about so many of our partners in our communities who are, working in the sports arena, but still talking about all the other things that are available to our kids and fighting for them, like Joe Hooks with the 480 Club and others. They're educating people and having them more aware, and that means that there's going to be more demand for the services, right? And that's what we want. Yes, that's what we want. But let me be very clear. We just have to make sure that we have the resources to support it. And so with that, any information that you can give us in terms of helping us to identify, a little bit better in terms of what those anticipated costs and additional resources may be, I know it's going to be helpful for the future Education and Culture Committee as we get ready to embark on budget. Budgets normally are submitted to the county executive in December, so from the school system, so we only have basically a month and a half of us working to make that happen. So let's see what we can do there. Okay. Anything else from my colleagues? Anything else? Oh, please, Dr. Floyd.
I want to share, Councilmember Rice, that I did participate in Career Day as a teacher.
Fantastic.
So now you can say that you know one.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Well, thank you for doing that. That's incredibly important. And it's one of those where I was actually at Farquhar Middle School with our principals and a couple of days ago. And I told each and every one of them there, they were our middle school principals. And so I told them, I said, look, you need to make sure that you're having, if you don't have it, that you have a teacher speaking at your career day. It's just something, it's kind of an oversight because you think to yourself, well, the kids already see the teachers every day, so why are they, but to step out of that role as I'm your teacher and talk about the profession and what it means and why it matters and why you should consider it is different. And so that's that next step. And I understand it's counterintuitive kind of because you're like, well, they're in front of you all the time, but not in that capacity. And so it's important to highlight, and this is the thing that I think is important, is that you're highlighting that just as you're highlighting these other professions that you think are so great, you're highlighting the fact that teachers are also so great, right? That's the message that we want our kids to see, because then that's the way that, a person like my good friend Daniel Garcia, who I went to Tacoma Park Intermediate School when it was Tacoma Park Intermediate, and then to Blair High School, who is now a principal. That's what happens, right? And we start to see that homegrown talent that then goes back into our community and serving our community. That's what's incredibly important. So, all right. Ms. Hernandez, have we missed anything else? All right. Well, again, thank you so much for the update. We look forward to, we have two more, right? Or is it one more?
We will have one on more resources to ensure all students are successful, and then the ENC and HHS committee meets on the 31st to discuss early care updates.
Perfect. Excellent. So two more altogether about Blueprint, but really appreciate all of your great work. Thank you to each and every one of you who continues each and every day to make our school system a better place for our kids and our community. We appreciate it. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Corridor and on County Cable Montgomery.
Travel is slow on I-270 in the following locations.